take you back to your conversation that you had with Dr. Manyane Makua. He's the MUT acting vice-chancellor just a few minutes ago as well. He unpacked so many issues. Let's just bring our viewers some context. Let's just remind them why we are where we are. He mentioned the historical debt, the registration fees, the results, student results not being released because fees were not paid up. There's the issue of technology, such as laptops not being provided. And then we throw in the issue of Nehawu. If you've just joined us, Nehawu also protesting over an increase of salaries at the university. So there is a lot at play here, and there's a lot of moving parts, isn't there, Jason?
It is, and as I would have said, as you would have heard me say to him at the end of that interview, he certainly has a lot on his plate, especially in his acting role right now, and he's dealing with the staff on the one side, unhappy about salaries. He says that they have engaged with unions on that front, and although he didn't give us all of the details that came out of that meeting, he did say that it seems like there is some positive engagement that is happening on that side. On the side of the students, he would have us believe that all is well between themselves and the SRC, but the problem now lies with this group. Those issues that you mentioned, remember, had come from the SRC to the university, and that was through their formal engagement. The issues of laptops being one of those, the issue of the free registration as well as the historical debt that they are dealing with. And the situation that the university must now deal with is in front of you right at this point. But there still is a huge question mark over exactly how that's going to happen. I did also see the Deputy Vice-Chancellor engaging with this group of police that you see here. We were talking to them earlier. I'm not sure what the conversation was about, but I think he may have hinted at it in his conversation with me, and he said that this group of students can't continue doing this forever. At some point, there comes a time where they need to talk. And that's true, isn't it? Because this is not what they're here for. They are here for the demands that they have. They are here for whatever it is that is frustrating them beyond those other demands that we heard of. But at some point, they need to make that known if they expect the university to act on it, or at least try to act on it.
And if you've just joined us at 18 minutes past 10, that gentleman you just saw there with the black shirt, black mask, that is the acting vice-chancellor of MUT that Des Ntathia is speaking about. He had the first chance to speak to him earlier, Dr. Manyane Makua as well. Des, I think for the context of the country, let's just remind viewers that this should not come as a surprise. I don't mean the violence. I don't mean the rioting. I mean the protesting. This seems to be part of this larger shutdown of higher education facilities. I'm reading reports that there's some 26 facilities or establishments around the country that are going to be affected by this call for this national shutdown of higher education facilities around the country. So politicians and those in charge surely can't be surprised by the protest, although I am sure they are surprised by the level of violence.
Definitely, and I don't think that there's any single political party that would even condone what is happening at this point. Worse, those that are committing these acts of violence here at the university are brandishing these flags with the faces of political leaders on it in making their points known. But to come back to your question, no, certainly it's not unexpected, the protest that is. And while it often looks sporadic, it looks like it pops up at from institution to institution, from province to province, it is part of a national movement, and it's one that we haven't, that is not new, but one that we've been following for many years now. And we saw, I think, just among the worst of it in the years gone by, in 2016 or so, we saw the Fees Must Fall movement, and they are still really fighting for, at the core, the same things, but now adding other elements that may sometimes be specific to certain universities. university campuses along with their list of demands. You might find that one university may have Wi-Fi in its residences, but another may not. So that would be added to a list. And there's a number of things that they have added to the lists among the years. We've even seen sanitary pads for women added to lists of some of these, some of the demands rather. And that's what is exactly happening here. The only difference in this particular protest, Gareth, is as much as we've seen all of the violence this morning, the one thing we don't have a clear picture on is exactly what that group wants.
Let's talk a little bit about the historical debt for a moment, Dason, while you're continuing to bring us this rolling coverage of the situation at the entrance of MUT. We spoke about it earlier, the historical debt. Let's just give viewers an idea of the kind of historical debt that students are talking about. I once again turn to social media on this, again, not suggesting this is factually correct or has been corroborated by me or the channel. A student, Dason, saying, because of historical debt at MUT, this is a tweet, I owe the institution 18,900 Rand, and because I can't pay, they are refusing to provide me with my certificates, and I've just lost my first job because I couldn't give them the paperwork. And this is the kind of issues that these students are trying to address. The university, of course, needs to make money to provide education, and the situation here is this student has the education, but he can't pay to get the certification to go on into the job market. It's an almost impossible situation, isn't it?
Exactly, and you know, there are always two sides of the coin, Gareth. That is certainly a valid concern, and you can only imagine the frustration of that student and other students like him or her in a situation like that, where they are doing what is required of them, but they are being hindered by elements that are sometimes out of their control, one of those being finances. Then on the other side, you've got something that, for example, the DVC had said to me during that interview, and that is around the fact that, simply put, the university needs money to run. And this university, like any other university, certainly does. So how do they pull off this balancing act? On the one hand, you've got students whose futures are being compromised because of, as I said, those financial issues that they are surrounded with, because of the circumstances that they may be dealing with in life, because of the financial aid scheme, or for whatever reason it may be. And on the other side, you've got this place that has bills to pay, from the electricity to the water, and as well as the staffing costs. You're now talking about the staff wanting increased salaries. All of that is going to add to what is an already huge bill. And that's why I had said to the DVC during that interview that while these compromises are reached year on year at a localized level, there needs to be a broader intervention, because unless there is some kind of way to address this, and not just one or two issues, but all of them, this will, for as long as the foreseeable future, just be a band-aid on this wound that keeps getting deeper and deeper as the years go on.
And there's a wound as well, Dason Tathia, that the university itself, the Mangosuthu University of Technology, has to deal with. And if you get a chance to speak to the Vice-Chancellor later, again, the acting Vice-Chancellor, perhaps you can put this to him as well. Reports from mid-February coming out that MUT holding council meetings. It's amongst allegations of deteriorating governance and management. Even calls coming through the highest channels, Dason, for the Higher Education Minister himself, Blade Nzimande, to intervene and consider taking over the administration of the university. So apart from all the issues the students are raising, there's still this ongoing issue about what seems to be mismanagement and governance at the university. And I don't imagine that is going to help to try and solve this particular issue, where there seems to be a fragmentation, a breakdown, it seems, of the management at MUT, to the point where the minister himself is being called upon to try and intervene.
That's right, because at this point it's crucial that the staff and management speak in one voice in addressing these issues. The issues have not been closed, they've been very public. The situation that is going on amongst the MUT staff and management. But despite that, they still have this very real problem on their hands. So this is going to be, I think, a situation that is going to go far beyond just today, because it's not unusual, even in the past, to see protests break out beyond these negotiations that they reach and beyond those that get the academic year going. So MUT certainly does need some kind of intervention, and if that intervention comes from a national level, it might just be exactly what it needs, because this is also not the first time we're hearing about that fragmentation, about those issues around how this campus is managed, and certainly not the first time we're seeing the unhappiness from students that attend this place. Remember, one of the things that the DVC said, just talking about students, is that he said, or he claims rather, not all of the people that you see behind me now are registered students, and some of those are students that, or rather people that want to register at this institution, and that is why there was that issue around registering for free, something which the university says it can't afford.
If you have just joined us here on eNCA, this is Newslink. I'm Gareth Edwards. These are live visuals from the Mangosuthu University of Technology. The protests that we had seen earlier, rocks being thrown, bottles being thrown at police who were trying to push protesting students back into the campus, has somewhat for the moment died down. You can still hear singing and dancing
Gareth,
in the background.
Interrupt you.
Jason, go ahead.
Gareth, there seems to be some movement now, because there's a splinter group that is joining that main group that we saw. They're now moving in towards the entrance. That's where we were standing and keeping an eye on what was happening. Remember, the police had also gathered here. So they're now forming what appears to be some kind of unified, and I say this in inverted commas, a unified front outside the administration building, just a few meters away from the entrance. And they're all now singing together. Interestingly enough, the police that were gathered here at the entrance have now moved out. They've moved out towards the road. I just want to take a look at what's going on outside. They are keeping watch. I see the Metro Police has brought in its Nyala. I think this is just to clear the road as well as to form some kind of backup, because while this is happening inside, as I mentioned earlier, it is one of the priorities of the police to get the traffic moving, and they certainly have a lot of work to do here as they try to clean this area just outside the gates of the Mangosuthu University of Technology. There seems to be, on the other side, at the spot that I just left you now, the students are engaging. There seems to be a discussion that's taking place. So many things happening at the same time, lots of moving parts, Gareth, and really you can't say what's going to happen in the next second, because as is the nature of these protests, things move very quickly, and students sometimes react when the police may believe that the situation has calmed down. You'll see that group that I'm talking about and now, Gareth. They've moved a lot closer from where you saw them the last time. They're now almost about 10 or 15 meters away from the main gate. That would have been where you saw them initially when we started this live coverage. Remember, they were hiding here behind this gate. They were armed with rocks and bottles, and that's where they were also taking refuge.
The gentleman you can see there to the right-hand side, we just zoomed in a bit too quickly, wearing what I think is a pink or purple shirt. It seems the students aren't very happy with him. He came out of the administrative building a little earlier as well. We're not too clear what his role in all of this is. But Jason, did the acting Vice-Chancellor, I may have missed it, did he say earlier to you that he had spoken to a member of this group, or that he was still planning to?
No, so what he was saying was that he was open to an engagement with the group, and in fact during that interview he had said that he's willing to speak to them. But as I imagine it would be in a situation like this, he wouldn't be engaging necessarily with the whole group. He would want representatives of it. So to answer your question in short, he hasn't actually engaged with them, which is part of the confusion now, because how then does the university act on what it is that they are demanding?
It's worth reminding viewers who've just tuned in may have missed the conversation with Dr. Manyane Makua, MUT Acting Vice-Chancellor. Dason, he was saying that this is not a group that is associated with the SRC, the Student Representative Council, because the university and the SRC had met and there are ongoing engagements. And he's suggesting this group is something of a splinter group, a breakaway group.
That's right. I lost you for a second there, Gareth, but I think I got the gist of your question. This is a breakaway group, according to him, because he says this is not the group that he engaged with, because the SRC had been quite clear in putting forward its concerns as well as listing them. We listed them earlier, and that was around the issues of finances and certain of the things that students felt that they needed here, like the laptops, for example. And he says that they will go as far as they possibly can to ensure that... just excuse me for a second, Gareth, while this student is threatening us. So I'm going to take a step back. So we're moving away towards the gate. No, we are leaving. We are leaving. We are leaving. So Gareth, when I say we're leaving, I mean I'm moving out of that space, but I'm certainly not going to stop reporting on what's happening here. This group has now asked us to leave, which is also something that's quite confusing, because it is someone rock past us. Gareth, pardon me while I just move outside area.
Well, that's fine, Dason. I think you keep moving away, Dason. Find a spot perhaps a bit safer for you as well. I found it interesting, Dason, as you're walking away, quite rightly as well, to ensure you're safe. The gates closing behind you now. It seemed there was somebody who was in charge there trying to stop the students coming out onto the road. It almost was an invisible barrier, very happy to come all the way to the gate and push you away. I think the right thing to do as well is for you to walk away, but not seemingly wanting to come out of the property again.
And I think we must clarify something as well, Gareth, that while everyone has a right not to be interviewed, we also can't be stopped from reporting on something that is affecting not just this university community, but also the broader public here in Umlazi. So certainly if that gentleman doesn't want to be interviewed and his colleagues don't want to be interviewed, that's fine. But we still have an important issue here to cover, and that's an issue that is affecting far more people beyond those that you see there. But one of the interesting things about that is it also then creates a problem of communicating that message, because surely in every protest there is a message that needs to come out of it. There is something that you would imagine those are protesting would want to get done. But by choosing not to speak or not putting forward that message, not only to us, because at this point we are secondary, but if they have not communicated that message with the university yet, how is it that they expect things to be done? How is it that they expect the university to act on whatever it is that they want? I had said to you just earlier, ironically, I think a few minutes ago, that things move very quickly at protests like this, and you would have seen how things turned from calm to unruly as quickly as a few seconds. And that's exactly what just happened here now. So the students are still inside. The police are around us. I'll give you a sense of what's happening around me now. You've got that armored police vehicle from the Metro Police that's...
All right, Dason, it does sound like, I'm afraid, the microphone has dropped again on us for the moment, but we are seeing the police visuals. Dason, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to let you just catch a breath for a moment as well. We can see the police still outside the Mangosuthu University of Technology. Dason, I think we're going to come back to you in a short while. The gates at the university are closed. The students are still inside. Perhaps we can try and get one of the police officers or perhaps a member of the public who are standing around you to try and get reaction from them about what they think is happening. Bearing in mind, we've only heard from the acting Vice-Chancellor. We have yet to hear from a representative of that protesting group at MUT. I'm sure as we give Dason a bit of a break, he'll try and establish some personal authority that he can speak to. Now, still ahead.